All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about net neutrality here, switching gears. Here's an article from The Verge. I'm not sure how good this is, but let me go ahead and give it a tweet. I think it might be a bit of a kind of soft apologist summary, but we'll see what's gonna go on here. Because yes, net neutrality is dead, and yes, this is very serious. And my fight for municipal internet in my community just got a whole lot harder. And we'll talk about that too. But first, let's see what this article says to summarize it. Net neutrality is dead. What now? As of June 11th, the legal protections against content discrimination on the internet are gone. As far as the FCC is concerned, net neutrality is dead. At its core, net neutrality means that all online traffic is treated equally. The rules put in place, let's see here. The PI order rescinds this classification. That's referring to Title II. Well, here, I'll read the summary. The rules put in place by Wheeler's 2015 Open Internet Order. Now, keep in mind, that is actually a misleading sentence, because even though we did not have net neutrality cemented on the books until 2015, we worked under net neutrality rules since the advent of the internet as we know it. So don't let people make you think that, oh, well, we just had net neutrality since 2015. The internet was different prior to 2015. So why do we need net neutrality? Blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of nonsense. That's misleading. That's not true. We've worked under net neutrality since the advent of the internet. Then the cable companies took that to court because they didn't want to play by those rules. And then we lost, but the FCC designated the internet a Title II classification, preserving net neutrality on the books. Net neutrality and digital rights activists had been fighting for solid net neutrality protections for years. Had their told you so moment when the cable companies took the FCC to court and then finally got what we have been calling for years, since about 2004. So don't let anyone tell you, oh, we've only had net neutrality since 2015. Darpa, darpa, darp. Not true. The PI order, so this is what Ajit Pai did, rescinds the classification. It rescinds the Title II classification, treating the internet as a utility. And it attempts to return to what he often refers to as successful light touch regulatory framework. Again, that's a right-wing lie that honestly a lot of Democratic establishment parrots too. Why? Because they love to give Obama credit he doesn't deserve, i.e. credit for net neutrality. When you parrot the narrative that we have Obama and Obama alone to thank for net neutrality, you are being a hyper-partisan, useful idiot and helping to kill off net neutrality. That's what you're doing. And you're just straight up wrong. Did Obama do the right thing when it came to net neutrality? At the 11th hour, yeah, he did. But he's not responsible for it, nor is Tom Wheeler. Tom Wheeler didn't want to do it. Why? Because he's a cable lobbyist. The public twisted his arm into doing it. We have net neutrality because of we the people, not because of Tom Wheeler, not because of Barack Obama, not because of any other elected official. Okay, so let's move on to today. Again, what happens to the internet now? All right, so according to this article, good news is nothing will happen immediately. All right, so this is just bullshit fluff. That there's no reason for this paragraph. This paragraph's completely useless. Whoever edited this article failed miserably. Okay, so carriers aren't going to drop the throttle hammer on day one, but they will continue on path that they have been for years, using their control over the network to promote carrier-owned services and products. We already have a good sense on how cable companies and wireless carriers will behave. For years, carriers have been striking deals with video and streaming services like Netflix, allowing for more reliable data delivery, also known as paid peering or free mobile data. If you're an AT&T customer, you can watch cable programming on your phone, and it won't count towards your data cap as long as you're using their carrier. So far, that is mostly translated to free stuff so that no one was worried about it. Wheeler's rules left both room for paid peering and zero rating deals. So the FCC is going to do more of that. With Wheeler's rules out of the way and Pi taking, or not the FCC, the ISPs, excuse me. Carriers are free to use the same playbook more aggressively. Paid prioritization deals could allow carriers to boost specific companies and products depending on what makes the most money. Throttling could actively degrade service for non-partner companies. The result would make it difficult for smaller streaming and video services to even get in the game. You know who that includes? This guy. And any other independent media content creators you like. Over time, your internet bill may start to look a lot more like your cable bill. Yeah. That means you're going to have to pay for access to different sites. They're going to make the internet look like cable television 2.0. That's what they're going to do. They'll also be free to collect and share more data, serving ads tailored to individual web and purchase histories. Yeah, you kissed a lot of civil liberties goodbye with this one too. In April last year, President Trump signed a resolution that reversed yet another Obama-era privacy ruling, allowing providers to share customers' web and search histories. With that resolution passed, carriers no longer have to ask for explicit permission before viewing, sharing, or using that data, meaning you are just a data collection for your internet service provider now. AT&T, Comcast, they're selling you now. They're not just price gouging you, they're selling you. You're not a customer, you're a product to them. You are a product to them now. Many of the state-level orders are on shaky legal ground. The FCC's December order included a preemption clause that prohibited states from enacting their own net neutrality regulation. It's only been 2 months since Washington State, the first to enact its own net neutrality legislation, passed its bill, and a lawsuit from the commission could be on the horizon. Still, experts say it's unlikely carriers would directly violate the state rules for fear of future lawsuit where rules already exist. Most internet users won't be impacted by the rules for months. An appeal to PI's orders are already pending in the D.C. Circuit, and it will trickle through higher courts for months to come. So what can you do? This is from the article. Net neutrality isn't over just yet. There's still hope. There's a motion in Congress right now that would force the Republican majority in the House to bring up a vote on the floor to rescind the PI order and reinstate the 2015 rule. That's the CRA. Now, does the CRA have a long haul? Yes. Now, what the CRA does is the Congressional Review Act. It's a process where Congress can overturn an FCC decision. In this case, they would overturn the rule to repeal net neutrality, or the repeal of net neutrality. It passed the Senate, barely, but it passed the Senate. Now it's got to be passed by the House, signed off on by President Trump. Is there a good chance that's going to happen? No. Do we have to fight for it regardless? Abso-freaking-lutely. Because it just stalls what the ISPs are looking to do. Keep in mind, the ISPs want to make as much money as possible. They want to price gouge as much as possible. If the profit motive is taken from them, i.e. they don't know what kind of legal battles they would have, i.e. they don't know what legally they could do, then it's going to take a lot longer for them to instill anything that's going to screw the internet as we know it. So the motion faces steep odds in Congress. The article basically points out what I just said. In the long term, net neutrality's fate is still unclear. Without definitive legislation passed through Congress, FCC orders could continue to flip-flop with each administration. Senator John Thune, a Republican of South Dakota, chairman of the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, has repeatedly touted his draft to make some kind of net neutrality regulations permanent, but he refuses to introduce it until he believes it has bipartisan support. The perimeters of that bill and future bill... Okay, so basically they're saying what you can do is you can kind of lobby Congress to support the CRA. According to this article, that's all you can do. There's a lot more you can do, though. You can push for municipal broadband in your community. That's what you can also do. You can also rally your state to have a state net neutrality bill. Even though these bills are susceptible to lawsuits, they still delay the inevitable. Because, well, hopefully not the inevitable. Hopefully we save the internet. But they delay the ISPs messing with us. Why? Because if places like New York and California have net neutrality protections that can't be messed with, which they can be messed with, but if the ISPs know they're just going to be in court battles if they don't follow the rules, it's going to delay anything. Because the ISPs know, oh, gee, New York and California have these net neutrality rules that we're going to have a hard time defeating because of kind of the legal work they did on their end. So that's going to be really tough for us to do anything because this is such a big customer base. If we enact a policy that, makes people pay more for certain websites or slows down certain content more than others, and we can't instill this in places like California or New York, all of a sudden the profit motive goes away. or at least is significantly hurt. So that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with as far as net neutrality goes. It is gone. It is gone. So this might be a thing of the past. That's just the reality. The CRA is long haul. And my thing is we got to fight for municipal broadband all across the country. That's the only permanent fix for this. Municipal broadband all across the country. I've been looking into mesh networks. I'm trying to learn more about them. That's been going on in New York City. And that's kind of where we're at. I've been fighting, and I know a lot of you have been following this. I've been fighting for municipal broadband in my community in Pasadena, where I live. That fight just got a lot harder because we are not going to have, part of my coalition included people running for office. We are not going to have an election this year in Pasadena because Pasadena, along with other towns in the California area, voted to skip an election. We voted to put democracy on hold. I voted against this because, unlike a lot of voters, I actually read the whole fucking thing before I voted on it. Other people didn't read the whole thing, I guess because they feel they didn't have to. But what that bill included was a clause where basically the premise of the bill was we're going to make local elections coincide with national elections, which on the surface you think, well, that's a pretty good thing because now we're voting on everything all at the same time. That'll increase voter turnout, hopefully. That'll make people more engaged. That'll make it easier to keep track of what's when. Okay, cool. However, there was a small clause at the end of that said, oh, and because we're doing this, to make counting easier on us, we're just going to skip an election. And we're going to extend everyone's contract for a year. So if you don't like your mayor, if you don't like your city council people, if you want to do something to have radical change in your community, you're going to be waiting until November of 2020. That election you were hoping for of March of next year, that you were entitled to, because that's how this supposed democratic system works, you ain't getting it. And the voters made it that way. But tell me again how you should never vote. Tell me again. Yeah, the voters made it that way. People voted for that. People voted for that because they didn't read it. They didn't read the whole thing. Or they thought, democracy, who needs it? Which, hey, I guess you can have that point of view. So that's what happened in my community. I've never seen anything like that, by the way. I have lived in the South before. I've lived in Tennessee. And I point that out because I've lived in a red state, and I've never heard, and I've seen some bogus legislation out there in Tennessee. I have voted against some stuff that would make your head spin. And I have never in my life seen a piece of legislation that literally just says, we're just putting democracy on hold for a year. I mean, that's cool, right? Why don't we just call the mayor the emperor? Why don't we just... Never heard of anything like it. And this is supposed to be the progressive utopia, right? California, the progressive utopia. It's pretty comical. Pretty comical. And I guess we'll see what happens here in a world without net neutrality. But those are the things you can do, and it's pretty much the same things that we've been able to do since day one. You can try to rally for the CRA, try to rally for state legislation preserving net neutrality in your state, and also you can try to get municipal broadband in your community. And that third one is the most important one, and honestly, it's probably one where you'll have the most chance at seeing any results. I know some of you are going to your town halls. Some of you have your mayors on your side, which is awesome. I don't have my mayor on my side where I live. But some of you guys have your mayors on your side. That's huge. So we got to keep fighting this thing. Otherwise, stuff like this won't be able to happen anymore. In the United States, stuff like this won't be able to happen. So yeah, we really got to fight this thing. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit,
And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.